Hello, everyone. And I thought I'd share a few words by way of encouragement with those of you who understand what these two words mean as it applies to your own personal life, the issue of depression and anxiety. Now, those of you who know me know that I am a fellow traveler on this road, that over the years, throughout my entire life, these are things that I have wrestled with and continue to wrestle with from time to time. Well, I've been a little bit disturbed lately because I have felt this disease, and that's, you take that word disease and break it down, dis-ease. And I've noticed that feeling has been with me now for quite a bit. And, as I am an introvert, and there to take that word is someone who does quite a bit of interior inspection, trying to find out the reasons why I'm feeling the things that I'm feeling. And as I've looked back over the course of the last year, when I made the transition from pastoral ministry to what I call it now, the civilian life, God pretty much paved the way for me to do that in a painless way. I went right back into a career that I've enjoyed for 42 years. And how many people can say that in their lives after working in the same profession for 42 years, still love their job in the same way that they did, and in many cases, in my case, even more so than when I first began in this field 42 years ago. So that transition was seamless. It was good. It's been good. Things are, at a personal level, have been going well. I'm the proud owner of a boat with my son, and so life has been good. And even in the midst of this COVID-19 outbreak, I have suffered a little bit economically, but nowhere near as much as many people have. And so, things are okay there. And yet I have found myself with this dis-ease inside, and waking up in the middle of the night with feelings of anxiety and not exactly being able to pinpoint a reason for this, dark moods and easily frustrated and easily discouraged. And so I've been wondering and asking God, what's behind this? And God pointed me out to something in His Word this morning in the midst of my daily devotions that I think really begins to help me answer the question in my case. And I was just thinking that maybe it would point you in the direction of some answers in your life. And so, as I think about anxiety and the things that bring on anxiety and the things that bring on depression, it really lies in what I call the unknown, all of the various unknowns that are always at work in our lives. What will tomorrow be like? My job, my relationships, my future, my health, and for those who are given to oftentimes interior inspections, spend a lot of time thinking about the future and the unknowns of the future. And what we have a tendency to do is we have a tendency to take all of those aspects that are unknown about our future and extrapolate them out in all of the various ways that they can extrapolate out. And if you're like me, in my case, I usually extrapolate them to the most catastrophic ends. And so that's what we do. And so I've been thinking about what's driving this in my life, and I came to this passage I've been reading in the book of Isaiah. Those those prophetic chapters in Isaiah are some of my favorite in the scriptures, and I come back to them and read through them often. And I was reading in Isaiah chapter 50 this morning, and I came upon these two verses that caused me to come to a full stop and a full pause and to meditate upon them. And instantly there seemed to be something in there that applied to me. And so I thought I'd share that with you. Maybe this will mean something to you, maybe not. But it seems to me that it was worthwhile sharing. So let me just go right into these two verses, and we'll go from there. So in Isaiah chapter 50, verse 10, we read, "Who among you fears the Lord? Who obeys the voice of his servant? Who walks in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of the Lord and rely upon his God." Now notice this verse. It's talking to specific individuals. It's talking to individuals who fear the Lord. It's talking to individuals who obey the voice of his servant. So it's speaking to a specific scenario of one who is really doing their best to follow God, yet finds themselves walking in darkness. And the Hebrew word here means not only a literal darkness, but also figuratively misery and gloom as well. So this verse is talking to someone who fears the Lord, who obeys the voice of his servant, and yet seems to be in this period of misery and gloom. Well, notice what it says to these individuals. It says, "Let him trust in the name of the Lord," number one. And that really speaks to his nature, trusting in the nature of God, trusting in his track record. What I mean by track record is if we reflect back over the course of our lives and over the course of the pickles and the situations that we've been in our lives, and how God has been faithful to his promise, God has been faithful to his word, and walked us through those situations and walked us through those valleys. So let him trust in the name of the Lord is really a way of saying trust in his nature, trust in his track record. Look back at how he has worked in your life and trust in his character. And so it says, trust in the name of the Lord and let him rely upon his God. And that is to just trust his faithfulness and walk through whatever unknown it is with faith in God. Even those dark tunnels, if you've struggled with depression, if you struggled with anxiety, you well understand the concept of darkness and those dark tunnels, descending into those dark tunnels. The wonderful thing about dark tunnels is there's always light at the end of the tunnel. And so these verses are really a contrast of lights. And so here we are told to trust in the name of the Lord and to rely upon him. But now in the next verse comes a contrast. In verse 11 it says, "Look, all you who kindle a fire, who encircle yourselves with sparks, walk in the light of your fire, and in the sparks you have kindled. This you shall have from my hand. You shall lie down and torment." And so here it speaks to one who kindles the fire, or one who encircles themselves with sparks, or minuscule bits of light. And here it says, walk in the light of the fire and tiny bits of light and sparks that you have kindled, or walking in the light of one's own manufacture. And so there are, as I thought about this, there are different types of light that we manufacture for ourselves, whether it be money, relationships, all of those things that we seek to insulate ourselves and to give us some sense of assurance, some sense of illumination as to all the unknowns in our future and all the unknowns in our daily lives. And so we manufacture our own light, and so we come to rely on our own light. And the promise is if we do this, this is what we'll get from this. You will lie down in torment, or it's a place of pain and grief. And so as I thought about this and I kind of related it to my situation. Maybe that's what's been going on with me. Maybe I've been coming to rely upon more upon my own light than relying on the light that God gives me to kind of figure out why I'm feeling this way, or is the fact that I have been relying more upon my own light actually what's generating this anxiety and this dark mood, this dis-ease within me. And so it's something that I'm thinking about and that I need to take a closer look at. And so this is something that is helping me. It's bringing perspective to this. And should it be surprising that I could have this kind of struggle? Like, I've been in one active ministry or another for better than 30 years now, and yet I still find myself in this place from time to time. And so I begin to question whether or not I'm doing the right things. But I go back to what it says in verse 10. This isn't speaking to someone who's walking in disobedience or has no care of the Lord. It's speaking to someone who fears the Lord and who obeys the voice of his servant. So you're doing your best to follow God and obey the voice of his servants, and yet we find ourselves in this place of darkness. And so maybe this is it. And so it's something to think about. But I do know this, that there's a choice to be made here. At any given time, in any given situation, as we face the great unknown and the unknown future out there, we can extrapolate all the possible scenarios and try and generate light that will light each one of those possible scenarios, including if you are like me, in my case, always extrapolating to the most catastrophic end, or we can let it go and trust that God is walking through us with it and will give us the light we need at just the right time. So or we can do it ourselves. Well, it all boils down to a contrast of light, the light of our own manufacture or God's light. In any given issue or circumstance, we are given the choice to face it and deal with it on our own light, the light that we manufacture, or God's. Okay, so now there's the contrast, but where do we go? Where do we go to get light from God? Well, the answer is given to us throughout the pages of the Scriptures. In John chapter 8, verse 12, it says, Jesus spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. You see that word there? He who follows. It's a progressive action. Shall not go about in darkness, but will have the light of life. So continually following brings the promise of continually not walking in darkness and continually having the light of life. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 29, it says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. So now we are to learn from Christ. For I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. So it's about following the light of the world progressively. It's about learning from Christ progressively. And the promise is we'll have the light of life and we'll find rest for our souls, which is the exact opposite of the darkness that's talked about in Isaiah chapter 50, verse 11. And to those of you who are out there who may happen upon this, who you've not moved into the category where you are doing your best to obey God's servant, where you're not doing your best, you're not even trying to fear the Lord. You can do that today, right where you are, right now. Listen to what it says in the book of Romans chapter 10, verses 8 and 9. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You can do that right now, that word of faith. If you're thinking about these things, it's quite possible that God is moving you right now where you are to confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead. You know what? If you do that, you will have periods of darkness in your life where you don't know what's coming, but you'll have the light of life to follow, and you'll find rest for your souls. Well, that's it. That's all I have to say on this for now, and I hope it helps you. These two verses help you get some contrast if you're in that place now, or if you find yourself in that place. That said, have a nice day, and God bless.